You and I are going to make something beautiful today. Look at this. This is magnificent, okay? I'm not gonna lie, I am in love with this. This is what we're working on today. I started this over the last week, and I wanna finish it with you and show you how you can create a bracelet, or dare I say even a choker. I don't know, chokers in style. They were in the 90s, and oh my goodness, all that 90s stuff is coming back. This could be very amazing as a choker, but I'm thinking for today as a bracelet. And then also, as I was working through it, you'll see in different stages, this is going to look great even as a dangle earring. I saw different parts as I was moving along and holding it vertically to see how it was laying and, you know, hanging and whatnot, that it had a lovely look for an earring as well. So it's amazing how you can take one simple shape. We've done this multiple times, multiple shapes in a pattern, in a repeating pattern, adding just a few accent beads. I'll go over everything that I'm using so you can try to duplicate it, and you get something marvelous. You see the same type of thing in nature. You get one little pattern and it repeats itself, and it's just magnificent. So that's what we're gonna be working on today. And I chose these green beads, you know, St. Patrick's Day is coming up and whatnot. I don't know if I have any Irish in me or not, but I have a little orange over here too. We're going to have all of our bases covered today. So I'm going to show you what you're going to need. Let's make this wonderful bracelet today. So let's go over what we're going to be using today in terms of tools and supplies. Definitely chain nose pliers, probably 2 as we work on jump rings. You're going to need some flush cutters. I'm also using my trusty bail pliers. Ruler, 18 gauge is going to work through this whole piece. For the jump rings, through the connectors, through this piece, the whole thing. We might use, depending on whatever I decide to, I'm just going to make it up as I go when I get to the clasp, what I think will look good. But probably 16 gauge for the clasp. I'm going to keep my nylon hammer and my chasing hammer nearby with my bench block, just depending on what kind of mood I'm in, how I want these pieces to look. Let's go over what you'll need to make, can I say a link? A section. Let's say that. Let's go over what you'll need for a section. You're going to need 2 of these 2.5 inch pieces, and then you need 3 of the 2 inch pieces for our beads, 4 jump rings, and a little bit of 22 gauge to make a section. So I'm going for 6 inches, so I'm going to be multiplying all that by 6 each. So I'll need 12 of the 2.5. I'm going to need 18 of these 2 inch pieces. I'm going to need 6 large beads. I'm making a 6 inch bracelet, 12 of these medium beads. And then of course we're going to need some jump rings to connect them. I think it's about 24 that we're going to need for that. So that just gives you a rough estimate of what you can pre-cut, gather together, and get ready to put it all together and make something beautiful. One little extra thing that I forgot to mention. See that little wrap right there? I used 22 gauge for that. I had forgotten about that. So let me tell you right now that just to give it some more connection, because if you don't do that, they kind of flip around, and we want them to stay together a little better. So sorry about that, 22 gauge. I'm also going to have a demo of these double flush cutting pliers from Xuron. Haven't used them yet. I'm not sure what it's going to do, but I thought this would be great to test out with you and see if we like it. I got some more polishing rags. Don't you think this one's had it? So I got a nice fresh rag. I'm going to show you what happens. You can really see how much tarnish these wonderful little rags are removing off of your wire. If you're using copper, really all of the wire has a little bit of tarnish on it, so it's great to have these handy. All right, now that we've gone over some of our tools and what we're going to be doing today, let's get started making this super simple little shape that makes something so marvelous. You know what? I went and cut all the wire and I'm not able to show you the stinking rag. So we're going to do it anyway. I'm just going to pull some out and we're going to cut a piece. So I got these off of Amazon. They're from Sunshine. And I'm really excited to get a nice fresh polishing rag. They have a special, there's something in them and I'm not sure exactly what it is, but when you feel it, there's something in them. It almost feels like lotion that is going to polish and shine up your wire and remove tarnish. Watch this. See, you didn't know all that was hiding on that wire. It looks pretty normal, right? Looks pretty good. But it had tarnish on there. So this is a great way to clean your wire up before you get started. And also, if you need to, it's a great way to remove kinks. If you don't have a nylon plier, you can use one of these rags to do the same thing. And I just kind of arc my wire back and forth and it kind of hardens a little bit as you're cleaning. So that's a win-win. Look at how much more I got on the same wire that I had already cleaned. See? Keep them close. I will say that when you're done using them, you're going to want to wash your hands because whatever that's in it is not good to keep on your hands. Let's go over how we're going to make this shape. I'm taking my bail pliers. I'm going to the 4mm bail on my pliers. This could be your second bail, depending on if yours starts with the 3mm. But go for the 4mm. It has impact without being too big. The first one I made is just too big, so I stepped down to 4mm and a lower gauge. And I'm just pressing around. This one's slightly longer, so what I'll do is push that one over and then push that longer one over to meet it. And then you'll find that that's how you can get your ends to match. And we just want to make sure that they're even before we get ready to do this crossover. Crossing over your wires, and then you can just slide your fingers down that wire until they meet at the bail. It's kind of close around the bail, but it still has just the tiniest little gap in there, this slightest of a teardrop. I want these tails to be 2 centimeters. So if I have any excess, this is when I want to trim. Not too much. You'll probably have just a couple millimeters that you'll need to trim. Now, I could have given you the length for that. What is 2 inches minus 6 millimeters? I don't know. It was just easier to say, cut 2 inches and then we'll trim. Because there's variance. Sometimes you don't get the bend exactly correct every single time. So it's nice to have a little extra that you can trim down to get your correct size that you're going for. Back to our bail pliers and that 4mm bail. We're wanting these loops to come in up to the center one. So have your loop, the first loop that we just made, upwards. I also have my hand kind of in this position so I can turn it up to this loop in a comfortable way. I've got my pliers right on the end. I want the curve of the loop all the way to the end of the wire. Don't have it back here where it's just kind of sticking out, because then you won't have a nice loop. Bring it all the way to the end. Making sure it's nice and level, perpendicular to the pliers. And just start rolling in until the wires meet. So we've got this loop, just turn over and do the exact same motion on the other side. My cats are going a little crazy this morning. They think it's amusement park time. So if you hear some flumping, that's them in the background. Okay, so we have our little shape that's going to bring it all together. I want to make sure that it's the same width that I want. Let's measure this so you know exactly what you need to aim for. This is around 3/4 of an inch wide. So that will make sure that all of our pieces moving forward are consistent in size, and you know, we get the same width going across the bracelet or your earrings, maybe your choker. So that is what we're going for. That's the basic shape. I'll show you one more time and then I'll work through the rest and we'll start putting it together, and I'll show you how to wrap the beads. Back with our 4mm, finding the center, wrapping around, we're going to trim to 2 centimeters. Oh my gosh, what are these cats doing? Okay, I've got these all made. These took no time at all to make because I kind of had an assembly line going. If you're making a bracelet, definitely if you're making a necklace, you're going to want to set things up as an assembly line. It'll go so much faster. I'm going to slide over my bench block and I'm going to take my nylon side of my hammer and I'm just going to hammer these out. This is going to flatten and strengthen. Okay, I've got my connector pieces here, flattened and strengthened, and we can move on to start assembling, bringing over our 2-inch pieces that are going to connect all of our gorgeous beads, or whatever you have chosen. Just a reminder, I'm using 8-inch, well, that would be a huge bead now, wouldn't it? 8mm beads. You could go up to a 10. All depends on this distance here. So this fits in there pretty nicely, but you could probably go to a 10mm. I'm thinking that you could. I wouldn't go any bigger than that. Look at this wonky one. I'm fixing this right now while I'm here. There we go. These are about 4mm this way, and maybe about 6mm in the other direction. So something like that. I want to make sure I show you exactly what I'm using. Now this is, you know, you might have to play around. You might be able to do something totally different. Just because you don't have 8mm doesn't mean you can't take 2 of these and double it up in there instead of this 8mm bead. Remember, they were 4mm anyway, so you could double this up. So just because you don't have exactly what I have doesn't mean you can't make this work. Let's go ahead into the next section. I'm going to be adding these little sparkly crystals here. And I have discovered, okay, so remember in the last video and the one, I think it might have been the one before that, I had shared that the 1 centimeter of wire works so great with a 2mm bail. Well, if you give it about 12 or 13mm with a 3mm bail, that works fantastic as well with no waste. You don't have to trim anything. So I'm just going to mark on here so you can see what I am measuring out. I'm going to go for, I'm going to try, I go back and forth between 12 and 13mm. I think I've got 13mm on here because I like things to just, you make the loop and it's perfect, you know, so that's what I'm endeavoring to show you. And I've got it just to the right of that dot that I made, and I'm going to press firmly against the pliers so we get a nice 90-degree angle like that. Picking up my pliers, going for the 3mm bail to go along with this about 12 or 13mm piece of wire here on the end. I'm holding this part firmly and very slowly, carefully roll in. So we make this little loop on the end. Do you see that? Do you see that? Do you see Do you see how that was perfect? Perfection. 3mm bail, 13mm of tail. Gives you a perfect loop. Slide on your bead that you're going to be using. And I'm just going to put this on here and do the same thing. I'm going to trim at 13mm. So as you can see, you might not need the full 2 inches, but it's so hard to work with things if you have little stubby pieces. Okay, you see how the closed part of the loop is on this side? I like to have the closed loop on the opposite sides when I'm doing these little wrapped loops or wrapped beads. And to figure out which side is going to have the closed side, whichever side you bend the wire to, that will end up being your closed side of the loop. So I'm going to take some of these tweezer nose pliers that I have down close to the bead so I can get it and bend to that 90-degree angle. Picking up my bail and the 3mm step, I'm going to do the same thing. Just roll in. Oh, I did it the wrong way. Do you see what I just did? One is going this way and one is going that way. I'm not sure how I did that. This might happen to you. I'm going to show you how to fix it. And it's super easy. Take 2 chain nose pliers. Dump. Now they're sitting the way you want them. Isn't that perfect? Absolutely perfect. Let me show you one more time, and then I'll do some, I'll put all the beads together off camera, and then we'll come back and put it together. Take your 2-inch piece of wire. You might be able to get away with maybe 1 3/4, but 2 inches is nice and safe. I'm going to mark off 13mm on this end, just to the right of that dot. Press firmly against your pliers. You get a nice 90-degree angle. Picking up my 3mm bails, going with that 13mm of wire on the end. Holding firmly in that neck and then just roll around. Now this ratio of 3mm and 13mm of wire might not work with bigger gauges, but these nice in-between ones, you know, 18, 20, 22, you know, it's definitely going to work then. I haven't tried it with the big fat gauges. Again, let's do one of these so you can see what that looks like. Slide that down. Now let's see if I can get it correct this time, Carrie. I want it in line with this loop, so I need to go in line with it. How did I do that? I thought I had it in the right direction. Anyway, and you can straighten it up even while you're bending it over. I'm going to trim to that magic 13mm, 3mm bail, and make that loop. Look at that. And if you see, it's still a little wonky. Same technique. 2 chain nose pliers, and just get them nice and straight and lined up. And that is what we're going to be doing with the beads and the beads of your choice. So I'll go through and I'll get these all wrapped up. Again, we're going for that assembly line. It works so well, and then we'll start putting it together. The rest of my big beads are done. I'm going to move on to our little sparkle accent beads. Since we worked through this as a assembly line, all of our pieces are ready, and all you need to do now is have your chain nose pliers handy so that we can open these loop and close them again and put it together. You don't have any tools out. You're not disrupting the flow with changing what you're doing, with the motion that you're doing, picking up a tool, putting down a tool, and changing. So then all you're left to do is put it together. It makes it really simple and really easy, and I highly suggest it for things like bracelets and earrings, bracelets and necklaces. Let me just show you. Look what that could look as an earring. You could even hang another little extra thing on the bottom, or just leave it like that and hang one of these sparkles on the end, or some type of an accent bead, and to match. That is beautiful. Before we start being able to put this together, I need to show you how you're going to make some jump rings. I have a few here, but I'm going to need several more than that. You need the jump rings to connect the larger bead to our little wonderful pieces that make something so gorgeous, don't they? Each one of these connections with the big bead needs 4 jump rings, so I have several more to do. We're going to go back to the 18 gauge. I'm going to grab my new polishing cloth and wipe this down, and we're just going to make some. Now you can buy them, which I am a proponent of buying jump rings. I just find them, you know, they're doable. You can do them. I just don't care for it. But sometimes you got to do it. So I'm just leaving my wire on the spool so I don't have any waste. Now, if you're just first starting, go ahead and cut it, because this having on here can be a little irritating. But if you maybe you've been doing a little bit and you're starting to get acquainted with different ways of doing things, try leaving it on the spool and see if you're able. I remember when I first started, keep it on the spool. No, I don't want this big thing hanging around. And now I do it. So you will eventually get there. I'm making sure. Oh, speaking of flush cutting, let's see what this does. Okay, so they're kind of snubby nosed. I've got lint from that cloth on it, and it just goes together like that. Let me show you the difference between the flush cutters. The flush cutter, this is what it's doing on top. Let's see what it does. Very easy. Wasn't any struggle. Of course, this is only 18 gauge. That's pretty flush. Still not quite as flush as your standard flush cut. It's very snaggy on the end. And it, from the, you know, just looking at it from the side, it's pretty flush. But then when you get up close on it, it's going to be really hard to tell. There's like a flat side. Like one side is flat, but yet it is kind of flush. I don't know. I'm not sold. But I'm sure I'll get some use out of it. Okay, so the whole time I thought I was recording showing you how to make this pile of jump rings, it was a pile of trash. I'm going to show you really quickly. I'm not going to make the big coil that I just did and didn't record. I'm just going to briefly show you what I did. I'm taking my 18 gauge, I cleaned it off, I'm grabbing bail pliers. I'm going to use the 3mm to match consistent size loops that we've been using throughout the piece. Grab your wire and your pliers nice and firmly. I'm holding my index and my thumb near the bail. And in my right hand is just making small, repetitive turns. And I'm feeding, this feeder wire is coming into the right side of the coil. And that's all there is to it. You just keep wrapping until you get as many coils that are going to become your jump rings as you need. Okay, I'm going to find this end that we started with, and it's already flush cut. So I'm going to turn my pliers so that this flush side is facing towards what's going to be the other end of our jump ring. And just snip. And there's another jump ring. Take your pliers back in, and we need to make this flush again. And it's the same thing. I turned my pliers. Now my flush side is facing opposite, so we can get a nice little flush joint. And now I'm going to snip the other end. And that's all you do. Just turn your pliers until you get flush ends on both sides of your little jump rings. And there you have it. That's all there is to it. Let's put this together now. And this is the pattern. So now it's time to put one of these in. And I'm going to open this loop. And close the loop. Simple as that. Open the loop. Slide that in and then close the loop. And that's all there is to it, just following the pattern. This is where the jump rings come in to attach these bigger beads as our focal beads, if you will. You're going to take, you might be able to do this with your hand or two chain nose pliers. And you're just going to grab both of them to make quick work. And then with your two chain nose pliers, close that jump ring together. I'm laying it back down because I want to make sure I've got everything going, lined up correctly. You might run into a little weirdness because these are not connected yet. Just don't worry about that. We'll connect that in a minute. Grabbing another jump ring. I'm going to open that. And I'm going to grab those two and close up the loop. More jump ring time. Bring over two of your, or one, not two of them, bring over one of these little connections. Kind of helps if you hold it like this a little bit. And you can reach in there and get that. Close up the loop. And again, I want to lay it down, make sure I've got it, my loops going correctly and lined up. Sometimes, if you get a loop going in the wrong way, it can pull things. Let's see if I can do it laying down. Okay, sometimes I pick it up, sometimes I just do it as it's laying down. It all depends on what loop I'm working on, what section, and how these connections are coming together. It just depends. You find out what is easiest for you. All right, that's looking great. We're going to bring over two of our little accent beads now. And this is all it is through the end. Opening, connecting, opening, and connecting. So I'll work through the rest of this bracelet. And then we're going to come back and we're going to do this cute little clasp. So apparently my wrist is smaller than I thought. I thought I was making 6 inches, and this 5 inches, oh my gosh, this 5-inch bracelet is going to fit me perfectly. They're going to come together perfectly on the other side of my wrist once we get this clasp in there. Oh, yeah. Very, very tiny. I wear a size 5 shoe, 4.5 high heels. I can go to the kids section and buy clothes. It's super, super tiny. My wedding band is a size 4. You know, what are you going to do? I will say probably the only thing that might trip you up while you're doing this is that if you hold it like this or you're moving it around and it's something is not laying correctly, it's not doing this correctly, it's probably because you have a jump ring or something that's twisted, laced in there the wrong way. So go back, and if you see any hang-ups or something that's like kind of, you know what I'm saying? It's the whole cattywampus. Check your jump rings, check how you've got it laced together. That's probably the issue, and you just need to take it out and reline it up. Look at this. This is magnificent, okay? I'm not gonna lie, I am in love with this. Green, I love green, as if you couldn't tell. Really, really like this, especially with those little sparkly beads. Let's get to the clasp so you can finish up this wonderful bracelet. Okay, so I'm just gonna leave one of these ends open. That is going to be our connector. So for the clasp, I'm gonna keep it super simple because I don't want anything distracting from this design. I want the clasp to be hidden away like you don't even know it's there. Yes, I wanted the 16 gauge. Grabbing my rag and cleaning this off. I'm going to cut about 3 inches to work with. Since this end loop is this way, we need to make our connector going like this. So I'm just going to take this little 3-inch piece of wire, and I'm going to go to the 3mm bail on my pliers, and I'm just going to make a simple loop on the end, pressing near the bail and just sliding around, turning as you go. I'm going to slip some chain nose pliers in there right where the wire meets the other wire, and then just bend backwards like that. How easy is that? I want to see how this is working. Let me see how it's feeling to me. I'm going to go ahead and put it on there. How it's coming around, and this is how you could make it fit you just perfectly, depending on how long you make that little hook. Say you're like, oh, I don't have enough to, like my wrist is a certain size and I can't put a whole nother of these sections, because you want to end on one of these. This is how you can make that size a little short, a little longer, depending on how long you make this extension here. So let's see. I am not going to need that much of an extension. I'm telling you what, not much at all with my teeny weeny little wrist. I'm just going to come out about a 1/2 centimeter on mine. With, what do I want to do? I think I'll do the 5mm bail. I came out about a 1/2 centimeter there. And then I've got it nice and straight over the pliers. And I'm going to bend straight over that bail and straight back down. Now I do have a lot of excess here, and that was just so that you could have something to play with. I think I want to bend this some more. I lost some of that bend in the wire. And just bend that straight down. We're going to trim this excess off. Of course, I didn't need that. Maybe 2 inches would have been better. Every time I do this, I kind of do it differently. It's like cooking. Every time I do it, it's different. I've never made biscuits that taste the same. Listen, you got me all laughing and stuff. Hold on a second. I'm going to pull this back a little bit. I'm going to put these pliers in there to make it kick back out again. And then trim. I've got this cutest little clasp here. I'm going to flatten this out a little bit. That's adorbs right there. I'm going to grab your manual file, your manicure file, whatever you have that you like to soften your edges, and smooth this out. And that should take care of that. Just a sweet, simple clasp that is not going to make a big appearance. This is the showstopper. I don't think it's extremely necessary, but I don't particularly like how this is loose in here, how they're kind of hanging out. I want them to be a little more joined together. So what I did is I took a little 22 gauge. Depending on what you have, oh my word, I hope I have enough. I got about a foot left of this. I didn't realize I was towards the end. We're gonna make it work. So I'll probably cut short sections in trying to make this work. Let's see if I can do it with about 2 inches. Let's see if this is 2 inches. Oh, not a winner today. Maybe next time, Carrie. I kind of just bend it over my finger just to get it started, you know? And we're just going down into these little loops here to make them stick together better, hold better. I wish I could use my my ring clamp for this, but with all these little beads in here, I can't do that. I have a marvelous video on demoing the ring clamp. I'll put that so you can check that out. And I can't do it with this. The ring clamp is so wonderful. And all I'm doing, I know it looks a little kind of ragtag here, but it comes together in the end. You've got to trust the process. That's what my son is always saying. Trust the process, Mom. And I'm probably going to go for about 3 wraps. You can tighten it up a little bit. See how that already, you know, that's the way painting is as well. Oh, there's definitely something called the ugly stage. And that's where I think people that do art, they give up because they've gotten to the ugly stage and they think their painting is ugly or their piece of art is ugly. And it's not. They just hit the ugly stage. You got to press on. You got to press on. It'll be just fine. I'm just using some pliers. I'm holding this tight. I don't know if you can see. I'm holding this between index and middle and my other hand. My other hand. I wish I had another hand. Holding that tight so I can get this wire in here. And I'm just going for 3 wraps that are going to be showing on this front side. It's like I have here. They do make something called a third hand, but I don't particularly like it. It's not my thing. I'm going to turn to the back side so I can just basically wrap it up, trim, and press in our ends here. Just pressing that down. And it doesn't need to be super tight. We just want it to hold together. And then just press down Once you got as many wraps, you're probably only going to need to be able to, you're only going to be able to make 2 or 3. And you'll get a little wrap in there like that, and that'll just really lock in those ends, and they won't be like this. Well, I hope you survived putting that wire in there. It's a little fiddly, I'm not gonna lie. Now, you do have the option of doing that wire as you come to it, as you come to these meeting places, and putting in the wire when there's just, you know, the next element that you need to attach. Or you can wait to the end and put it on there. That's your option. Well, here we are with our completed bracelet. Really, really lovely. Look how that sits on the wrist. And it is about, I think we measured, what did we say, 3/4 of an inch wide. Really, really lovely. It's going to take you some time, but it's simple. It's amazing how such a simple shape with your beads that you have in your stash, a simple little clasp can make something so lovely. You're ready for St. Patrick's Day? Well, I am at least. Let's bring this around and see if I can demonstrate how to clasp. Just bring that on around. You find that little on the end, that little loop that we made on the end, and you can just pinch that closed a little bit, and there you have it. Really, really nice. It feels nice. Even has a little sound. Bordering on kind of like a cuff, a wire-wrapped cuff that's got some slink and shine and sparkle. Really, really nice. I would love to see what color combinations or your variations of this bracelet. You can post to my Facebook or send me a message through Facebook. I would love to see what you've been working on. Instagram too. You can send me pictures of your work on Instagram. I would really love to see your variations, your creativity come through such a lovely piece. Another great tutorial, another great day spent with you. And I look forward to seeing you next week for Tutorial Tuesday.